Hello, everybody. It is Chris, aka Starrapter, here on the Starrapter YouTube channel for outerrimtransmission. This is episode 128. We're getting up there, guys. I'm joined by Milton and Ben this week. Hallelujah. The strikes are over. Resume production. And we're getting into all that. All right. We've been into dark ages. We're going to be talking, having a nice kind of laid back discussion of what comes next. We don't really know what the schedule is. We're going to be doing a lot of speculating this week on just what we're excited for, what's coming out. We also have some updates on some Star Wars video games and some really fun behind the scenes stuff I've been seeing on the set of Ahsoka that the actors are finally able to, legally release these images and whatnot. So getting into all that and much more on this week's episode of Outer Rim Transmission. As far as for me, I've not really had much of Star Wars this week. I mean, it doesn't really count because it's more of a promotion, but I will say my Star Wars week was just me playing through Jedi Survivor and trying to just play one episode a week and just falling in love with the game again and just saying, I'm going to just keep playing this until I beat it kind of thing. So I did a lot more than one episode upload a week. I ended up just uploading the entire thing over the last week. So I have that for you guys to enjoy. But yeah, it's a really fun game. Can't recommend it enough. I'll throw it over to you, Ben. How's your week been?
My week's been good. I'm finally over being sick and stuff, so it's nice. Like yesterday, I got back on the grind of fitness and my diet and everything. So it's just nice to really get back into it. And yeah, for my week in Star Wars, I didn't really have a lot leading up to today. And then today at 5:30, 6 o'clock, I realized, oh wait, I do have something to talk about. So what I did real quick before the show, when I was getting around and eating dinner, was I watched the first episode of Mandalorian season 1. Just because, if you guys didn't realize, today is the actual anniversary date of the show. November 12th was the release date of season 1, episode 1, and it was basically the launch of Disney Plus. So I was like, hey, I have to just watch Mando season 1, episode 1, and just let people know that it's hey, look, look how far we came on Disney Plus in 4 years with Star Wars, basically 4 years now, with Star Wars. To it's here we are now with all these shows and all these upcoming shows and projects we're going to talk about and speculate about, and it's just cool to see where how far if we would have watched that first episode, or if you would have told us 4 years ago on the first episode of Mando, oh man, this show's going to expand into all of this stuff and a future movie involving Thrawn eventually. I would have never in a million years believed you, because we thought Thrawn was basically wrote off and
Yep.
In Rebels and everything at that time, because it would have been 2019. And then we just would have, we would have really not, not really had any, or not really believed any of this. And on top of this too, I was thinking about it. The funny thing is also for you and me, Chris, that was the first time I really started talking to you a lot about some of this Star Wars stuff and podcasting and whatever. And that's when I that was shortly after, right into the first few episodes of Mando season 1 was when I was first on your on Outer Rim Transmission, just as a guest when me and Milton had been guests and stuff around that time. So it's look, we go from Mando to us just being on guest 4 years ago to now, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, it's crazy how things have transpired. Yeah, what a crazy time to be a Star Wars fan. Rise of Skywalker, Jedi Fallen Order. We talked about the sequel a minute ago. That's when the original came out, and all that on top of one another is one hell of a whirlwind of November into December and all that good stuff. But yeah, Disney Plus, I think things are changing. I was listening to a podcast today, Star Wars Underworld Network. They're back on now, so it's great listening to those guys on a weekly basis. And they're kind of thinking the way I'm thinking, where it's all right, series are doing okay, but let's get back to the movies. Let's get back to where it all began. I think Bob Iger now running things at Disney is a lot opposite of what Chapek was doing. Chapek was just, Disney Plus, Disney Plus, Disney Plus, and then we have Iger, who's, he shepherded in billions of dollars for Disney with bringing in Lucasfilm on the big screen with the return of the sequel trilogy and all. So, yeah, it's kind of funny to see how Disney Plus is, 4 years later, and just seeing, okay, the thoughts of people in general, like between the Marvel and Star Wars stuff. Like, let's start going back to the old ways of doing things. I don't know.
Oh yeah, and it's crazy to think too, like, also going into the launch of Disney Plus, I would have never guessed we would have had an iconic character, be born like Grogu was,
Mm-hmm.
because like, we would have never thought someone would be up there with Darth Vader being like iconic, on-screen characters, and like, 4 years ago was the launch of, Grogu going into that category.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. What do you look fondly on with Disney Plus, Milton? After all these years, like what's some of your idea on Disney Plus in general as a platform, and do you
I mean,
think it's everything it's been cracked up to be since its first initial kind of like hype train? I guess I
uh,
don't.
I would I would say yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of good things about it. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that people, different types of fans, can look into, like whether it's Marvel, Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
National Geographic, kids shows, whatever. I mean, look, my niece is 1 years old and she likes the Bluey show
Oh
that's
yeah.
on
Yep.
there. Like it's a great platform that reaches a multitude of people, whether it's again hardcore comic book fans or just
Mm-hmm.
family movies. I mean, I'm a classic guy of the Disney films. I mean,
Yeah.
I go back and watch the most animated movies all the time when I get a chance because that's
Yep.
childhood to me. So the platform is doing what it needs to do. I mean, that's with anything, whether it's with Netflix, Amazon Prime, whatever you get, the Hulu. As long as it serves its purpose in reaching the audiences, it's doing what it needs to do. So it is what it is, what it needs to be. So I don't mind Disney Plus. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think what you guys mentioned before regarding Chapek or Iger and their focuses when they were running, Disney. I mean, that has an impact on obviously business, and they're there for a reason, is to promote whatever business is good for them, whether it
Mm-hmm.
is Disney Plus app or the films.
Mm.
Overall, my week in Star Wars has been, speaking of the app, I went back. I think the last week or so, I've been watching the sequel trilogy. I don't know, something just told me to do
Huh.
it. Because I've just been in kind of like a Star Wars, like, just let me go back and watch the movies when I can. And I was sick a couple days ago, so I figured let me start watching some films. And I rewatched The Force Awakens. And again, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
I actually do like that film. I've always been consistent about that. I
Yep.
actually like The Force Awakens. It's a solid movie. Good
Mm.
launching off point for what we
Mm-hmm.
thought we were going to get. And I said in the group chat to you guys about Last Jedi, I struggle. I fall asleep to that movie every time. But I actually went back and finished it, and I watched it, and there's parts about it that I'm like, okay, I like, and there's a lot of parts that I don't. But it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I can sit through it and try to absorb it. Now I'm on the Rise of Skywalker. Hopefully, I can get a chance to finish that. But I'm trying to get a different perspective of that
Mm.
sequel trilogy, just because I've been seeing a lot of videos on social media lately talking about a
Mm.
retrospective of the sequel
Yep.
trilogy and that thing, and I'm like, okay, let me just go back and see
Yeah.
what with fresher eyes again. So that's what I've been doing the last couple weeks or so when I get a chance to get on the app.
Yeah. It's great to see. And I was telling you, Ben, this like I think the prequels were kind of hated when they first came out. People warmed up to them. It took like 15, 20 years, but I'm very curious to see what the outlook would be with Milton,
I,
15 years from now, looking back at the sequel trilogy.
no, here's the thing though. Here's what's funny. No, here's what's funny. And again, I'm not. This isn't me. This isn't me crapping on them like that. What I'm saying, what I'm going to say is this: the reason why I think the prequels have gotten so much love over the last 10 to 15 years is because of Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
One, because Clone Wars was strong. Like that. That's a any person that I know that's a Star Wars fan, they love Clone Wars. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
episodes that are goofy. That's any show, but Clone Wars made the prequels stronger. But even before that, back in the 2000 mid 2000s, the prequels was making bank, and people. I mean, they were still getting good word of mouth from fans. So obviously, I think the issue we were having then was you got the old head original trilogy fans who were like, "Oh, this ain't my Star Wars because it's like Jar Jar Binks and politics, blah
Yep.
blah blah." So and it's whatever. Like it's I'm not defending one or the other. I'm just seeing that perspective at the time, and I could be completely wrong when saying that, but I think when you look at Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
to most fans, whether you like the prequels or not, the prequels, the sequels and Clone Wars are very concise storytelling, and it all lines up and makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very clear on the direction, which is why I think a lot of the prequels has got more love too, because it ties in well to the original trilogy. It doesn't disrespect what George Lucas created in 1977, 80, and 83. It just it enhances it. It world builds. Why do you think people love the old Republic video games and books? Because it expanded Star Wars. It gave us more. It didn't handcuff it. I think the issue that we've gotten with the sequel trilogy is that there really wasn't enough expansion.
Yeah.
It unilaterally changed a significant amount of characters, and it flat out kind of disrespected what came before it. In my opinion, that's just me talking.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a majority of fans would say the reason why the sequel trilogy has gotten quote unquote not the love is because of how it changed what the original trilogy, sequel trilogy already established, and what you did with a character like Luke Skywalker. I think people are still not forgiving that.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
think
just my opinion on it. That's all I gotta say.
yeah, I think I mean you make a lot of really good and like fair points with with all of those thoughts and stuff. Like on the prequels, like Clone Wars enhances it so much, and then of course you had video games enhancing it, like Republic Commando and things like that, back in the day. And then it's just like, yeah, I think that's like always like the dividing line on like Star Wars fan talk online with like the sequels, prequels, OT, all those different things. It just comes down to like people's viewing like consistencies of characters and stuff, like Luke, for
Absolutely.
example. And I think honestly, if they wanted to, in my opinion, anyways, if they wanted to go like the direction they did, like eventually killing off Luke and all that stuff, you could do that in a fine way. I mean, because like for example, they made for example, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan was like a seamless transition for the character. Everyone agrees like he was the strongest character of the prequel trilogy. So it was a good transition from him to Alec Guinness in the OT. And like, we see like two almost drastically different versions of like Luke from the OT to the sequels when, like when it comes to like Star Wars talk online, like fans are always like talking expectations and things. And like I think they like Disney just tried to get too cute with it in the sequel trilogy, as in like instead of just like going the route of like, hey, why not we like throw Luke in episode 7, make him do some heroic stuff, get knocked off like Obi-Wan or something, or do it in episode 8 and move on. Like, and I think that would have been fine for the majority of people, because the thing is like even people who do enjoy The Last Jedi and enjoy like Luke's arc, the thing is though, if you take that out of their subconscious and you give us a heroic Luke in episode 7 and 8, those people would have loved it just as much as the other people do. So like that's my only thing with that whole thing. It's just like it's just weird consistencies with the character. But yeah, like you said, Milton, it's always good to like go back and retrospectively like look at things and rewatch things. Like, I crack jokes about Andor, but I'm gonna rewatch it eventually, like at least before the new season comes out. I'll rewatch it.
Yeah.
And like things like that, like just go back and check it out again.
I'll use that example too when I'll go back to the original trilogy in a minute. But even with Andor, like I love Rogue One, and I know Chris, Chris, are you an Andor fan or is it Ben?
Chris, definitely Chris.
So like, yeah, that's right. So like, but even with Andor,
don't include me in that.
Sorry, my fault. No, but like even with Andor strengthens, I think, Rogue One in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah,
especially with what, because we know how it's going to get to that
point.
Oh
yeah, I can give it that.
I think once we get to season 2 of Andor, let that play out. I think literally that's going to be a seamless transition from Andor 1 and 2 to Rogue One, which I think again that's strong storytelling, which is going to be, in my opinion, very rewatchable content. That's going to tie into the movies directly, as it should. It should strengthen your already existing property. Speaking of the movies, you talk about the sequel trilogy and then quote unquote they're being cute. I think Rian Johnson, and I forget who the writer was for that movie as well.
It was Ryan.
His writing partner was.
It was Ryan.
Ron Bergman?
I thought he had another guy. I remember like in the
Bergman
documentary.
guy.
Huh?
The guy with the curly hair. The
Yeah.
Ron Bergman?
Oh, yeah.
He's like European or something.
Or
But I
something,
remember
yeah.
in the documentary he says Luke Skywalker in this one is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I'm thinking, okay, if that's the case, you have the model of what Obi-Wan Kenobi should be like in that film. Because Obi-Wan Kenobi from the prequels was a heroic, optimistic hero who was headstrong yet followed the rules. However, he would go off the beaten path to be extra when he needed to, but he was very consistent. You look at, and this is the same guy who went through devastation, loss, forced to like kill his best friend, he thought, you know, but he never once changed, quote unquote, his attitude. Yes, we saw him in Obi-Wan series of him being off the way of the Force, but he still was consistently Obi-Wan. He still picked up that hero mantle when needed. He still went out and saved Leia. You get to the Rebels where he fights Darth Maul. Consistently, that's Ben Kenobi. That felt like Ben Kenobi. Obviously, in the original trilogy, that's Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan. Like, he was consistent. He wasn't a coward. He didn't run. When we see Luke, it's like, wait a minute.
Here's the thing.
This don't feel like Luke. This is Jake Skywalker,
Yes.
as Mark Hamill would say. You know, it's just to me. I just think like that inconsistency was the reason why I think
Well,
people
let me
struggle
make
with
a
that.
point real quick.
That's why I'm going back. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're looking at this as a right now problem, basically, is what's happening here, because there's 30 years of Luke. Like, how much do people change in 30 years, right? It's so many life experiences could happen in 30 years that, yeah, sure, you look at him when he's in his early 20s and versus in his 50s. People could be a completely different person.
Absolutely.
And the idea is, and I was saying this before about, in 15 years, imagine all the Luke Skywalker stuff we're going to have in 15 years, where you're going to see that slow progression to the point where by the time we see him in The Last Jedi, we've seen him through the Thrawn conflict, we've seen him through maybe some other conflicts along the way. We're going to look at that as somebody that had watched, let's say we get somebody that watched everything leading up to Last Jedi, all these other series he's going to be in. And I could probably almost guarantee you no one will have a problem anymore, because Lucasfilm is listening to the feedback and like looking back, they're going to build him up to be like, I can see it.
I will totally give you that. I will totally give you that, because again, that's growth personally. Like, you have to want to like give it a chance, and I'm willing to give it a chance if they expand it out. However, has they even discussed giving us any type of Luke information over those 30 years? We have not heard nothing.
Yeah, no.
We've gotten glimpses of him.
Yeah.
But like, oh my God, we have not gotten enough books. We have not gotten enough. We could get if we got a mini series of like I don't care if it's Clone Wars style of, give us something. I think that if they'd have given us that, let's say over the last 3 years, and say, hey, let's shift the focus on Luke. Let's now try to bridge those trilogies with each other and say, okay, this is why Luke became this curmudgeon and who kind of distanced himself from the Force. Like, I would have, if you'd have given me that, I think I'd have been that guy. Say, hey, now I'm starting to get a better picture. Yeah, do I still like the Last Jedi? No, but I see why he did what he did. That's me being mature, absorbing the information and trying to understand their storytelling. I think Kathleen Kennedy and Ryan and those guys were being a little too arrogant and trying to be extra instead of saying, hey, let's slowly build this out and then give them a reason to go back to see this.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing when it comes to a lot of that stuff. I mean, just like the prequels, just like the prequels with Clone Wars, with them, like, if they go and build out Luke and stuff like this, it's just basically like doing a lot of footwork and groundwork they missed on when it comes to the actual movie. Like, that's just flat out what it is. Like, that's what Clone Wars did for the prequels. It missed a lot of the holes that were in the prequels, or it fixed a lot of the holes that were in the prequels, in the gaps between the movies and such. And like, that's all this would be doing, for like Luke's character. I think also a big part of this, it's been my consistent thing for Star Wars for years now, is the issue when it came around that time. Gosh, here we go. We're talking our throwbacks on Disney Plus and Star Wars the last 4 years, but just in general, my thing is when it comes to Star Wars, it's been consistent. It's when The Last Jedi was out, there was so much wild stuff on social media and instead of like, you know, handling it well, Lucasfilm's like PR continued to let like Ryan Johnson battle fans on social media and battle and just say all kinds of wild stuff about fans. And like, you know, the thing is, like, in my opinion, when it comes to these, like Star Wars specifically, it can be for any of these companies, like they need to like get their people in check. Like, hey, you know, we don't need to be like going out and saying wild stuff on social media. Like, let's just keep, you know, almost like you know, kind of like how like the Patriots were in the NFL all those years, Milton. Like, you know, hey, we're gonna focus on what the goal is. We're not worrying about outside noise, blah blah blah. Like,
Right.
when we talk about the game, we talk about the game. We don't talk about anything outside the game. And like, I think that's what, you know, a lot of the people missed
Right.
around the time of that movie. Was it was just a lot of like wild stuff on the social media from the people involved in the project. And like, that's always my consistent thing with Lucasfilm. I wish they would just take a different approach with their PR, but
I
they
agree.
don't. It's like they just like tell everybody, hey, just go wild and do whatever you want on social media.
Well,
And,
until it becomes
Yeah,
the
I
Cara
think-
Dune situation, and then they shut it
Yeah,
I'm
down.
about to say, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a huge difference. Like I think if you do it like, you know, I need to represent Ryan Johnson and Pablo Hidalgo and those guys because, you know, they were like that. Even Chuck Wendig was like that with his
Oh,
books.
yeah.
I mean, I get why they would bite back because trust me, I got that same personality. Where
I just
like,
think they
you come
got to
at
give
me,
the
just-
company a line. You got to give the company a line in
Right.
those situations. Though.
Absolutely. But my thing is though, this is where Kathleen needs to take leadership and be like, okay, let's do like a Star Wars town hall then, or let's like, you know, they do those market calls for Disney. Let's
Yep.
do a town hall market call for Star Wars and say, hey, this is where we're at with our projects. I don't need to give you details about story. I don't need to give you details about what we're actually doing, because you've always said it, and we've all said it. Star Wars has been really cagey, and Lucasfilm's been really cagey. It's like, stop with that. Like, just say, hey,
well,
let's
Milton,
stay in
here-
touch with the fans. Good organizations, and I'm gonna use sports here. Good organizations in sports who are consistently competing or consistently have consistent great fan bases, or tend to be the organizations that, one, know how to communicate with their fan bases, know how to keep them engaged, know how to keep wanting them to come back for more, and know how to just overall make that fan base feel like they're valued and heard.
Yep.
And look, you don't have to listen to the fans all the time. We don't know what we really talk about. We don't know everything. Facts. And
Yep.
I'm a fan too, so I don't know everything about Star Wars and where to properly take the stories. However, I need to feel like I'm not being heard, but feel valued. Feel like, hey, we're trying here. You know, I love the Eagles. Jeffrey Lurie is our owner. He does a really good job.
He's always in the
listening
media.
to the fans,
Yeah.
but also doing a good job at communicating with the organization and the fans. Say, hey, this is why we made this decision. This is why we're going this route. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it, but I want to communicate. I want to be transparent. This is what's best for the organization. Whether you cut a guy, you trade for him, you fire a coach, and they communicate it. Okay, cool. We'll move forward. We'll give you a chance. Disney
Well,
doesn't
look,
do that.
I mean, look at like our sports fans out here. 2 years after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they fired Doug Peterson because it wasn't good enough. You know, they wanted to upgrade and they did. And, you know, Nick Sirianni has been great for them as the coach. So, like,
Right.
it's go on.
Well, I'm saying you have to make hard decisions, whether it's in running the sports franchise or running the movie studio, running the movie whatever. You have to be willing to make that hard decision, which I think Kathleen she's very capable of doing it. She's done it. Like, I'm not going to hate on her for that. Like, she's in
Yeah.
that position for a reason. I think when it comes to now with this whole strike being over, and I'm sure we'll get into that conversation because Chris, you talked about where's Disney or where Star Wars going to go now that the strike's over. I think this is a time where now that the strike's concluded, I think that Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and all these studios need to do a better job at being more transparent with their fan base, where things are going. Don't give us all the details. We don't need them. But hey, let's just make them feel like, hey, we are trying to connect with our fan base. We're trying to make them feel like they're part of this family and this community because they're the ones that drive all this. It's show business. If we don't come out, you don't have a business. So you got to keep us somewhat feeling valued, somewhat involved. You know, does that make sense?
No, perfectly.
So,
Definitely. So there you have it, a good old Outer Rim transmission rant, or not really a rant, but a off-the-cuff discussion about The Last Jedi, about the future of Lucasfilm, all within 25 minutes. Look at that. So getting into the show proper, we already have a bit of an audience. We got Small Bento Sakura. We have the race side. Hannah's here. Like I said, those guys are back on the air again. The Star Wars Underworld Network podcast is back online, so go ahead, give those guys a follow. Because if you like the conversations here, I'm sure you're gonna like the conversations over there as well.
Yeah, before we move on,
Sure.
I just want to shout out Hannah real quick. The other day, I think one of her videos, she talked about having the fans pitch her some Star Wars ideas for shows or movies or something, which I thought that was kind of dope. Like, that's kind of cool because it's cool to see. It's cool to see how the fans can be creative. So shout out to Hannah for engaging her audience like that and getting them to try to pitch her some shows. Because Hannah, if you need someone to play a Jedi, come hit your boy up. Or I'll be a Sith Lord. You want me to be a Sith Lord? I can act. I got. So come hit your boy up.
Hey,
Yep.
there you go.
There you go. There you go. And I'll just be just a rando bounty hunter in the background walking around, or smuggler or something. You need one of those stunt double just jumping and getting shot or something. I could probably do that. But yeah, so we are live here, obviously, on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that's when we go live every week. So make sure you go ahead if you're watching after the fact, or if you end up listening to us, go ahead and check us out. We'd love to be having you guys as our interactive chat room here. We're also available on any podcast streaming app of your choice: Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play. We're all there. Just search Outer Rim Transmission. The race side, she's replying back, "I'll hit you up for sure," she's saying. So there we go. We might get like a foot into Hollywood, because I don't know if you guys know, but race side, just killing it. She is like really rising with these subscriber numbers.
Well, that's what happens, Chris. I mean, you might have to take a hint. That's what happens, like, when she goes and paints herself blue on stream and becomes Thrawn on stream. Like, hey, maybe you have to do that next time.
I mean, she's probably one of the few, if not the only, Star Wars variety show online. So go ahead, check it out. I'm very curious to see what she's going to think of next, because it always is surprising, to say the least. Oh, man. So, yes, we have some things to talk about in the world of publishing. We have Darth Vader issue number 40, Shadows of Starlight issue number 2, The High Republic issue number 1 for Phase 3. So, The High Republic Phase 3 has kicked off properly. I'm always joined, or I should say, I join Matthew, because it's on the Star Wars Underworld Network every Thursday at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Bring your lunch, bring your breakfast, as we like to say, and bring her comics, because we go into a deep dive of every week's comics in like a 45-minute bite-sized show. So we'd love for you guys to join us there, be a part of the live discussion. It's really good times over there. And jumping into things proper, we got more episodes. Oh yeah, new episodes, more episodes, same thing, of the Young Jedi Adventures. It's the show that's skewed for like the 3 to 5 range. But what's notable about this one is they're really starting to thread in the High Republic content. We get Load and Greatstorm, we get Bel Zettifar, we get the Charhound, we get Nile representation, we get Starlight Beacon, and we get Maru, who is one of the leaders on Starlight Beacon. So we get references to Avar Kriss. So whereas before this show was very much in its own little universe, these last 6 episodes they uploaded, still part season 1, they are at least acknowledging the literature of the High Republic itself, of that whole current thing. So yeah, pretty cool to get some on-screen stuff. So there you go, and it's really fun. I think a lot of kids will dig it. I've yet to sit down with my niece and nephew and watch it, but holidays are coming up, so I'll be seeing them more often, and just maybe I'll get them to watch it. Who knows?
Hey, there you go.
Minecraft.
Well,
go ahead.
I'll say that goes to my original point when we talked earlier about the app. Like, I think Disney Plus does a good job at trying to capture different audiences, whether it's older adults, teenagers, young adults, kids. Like my niece turned 1 in August. Now she's not into Star Wars, but she likes Encanto, all those type of movies. And hopefully in a year or two, I get her into watching Star Wars. I know her dad likes it. My sister doesn't really like Star Wars, but I can convince my brother-in-law to have his daughter watch Star Wars easily.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get little Sawyer to watch Young Jedi Tales, Clone Wars eventually. Like I'm
Yeah,
telling you, it will be something that'll be a good jump off point. I think for any little kid. Plus, she's
seriously.
a little girl, so we need. I love having nieces that are really into Star Wars. So I mean, I have two older nieces that love Darth Vader. Like I'm thinking that's amazing. So we need more like female fans. It just
Yeah.
expands the brand. It strengthens the brand.
Yeah, my niece is absolutely terrified, and apparently my nephew's terrified of Darth Vader now. So I don't know if that's gonna scare him away from Star Wars. So I'm a little nervous, like, oh no. Oh man, I mean, there's scarier things out there in the Star Wars galaxy, like Jabba the Hutt. I don't know. He always freaked me out, but interested me at the same time. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
for me when I was a kid, the only thing that ever freaked me out ever when I was younger watching the OT, when I was like 5, 6, 7, whatever, was the Tusken Raiders and A New Hope. Those things
Uh,
always freaked me out every single time whenever they attacked Luke. That was like the only thing that ever bothered me in Star Wars.
that and the Wampa, especially the special
Yeah.
editions with the Wampa eating like the freaking bloody chicken leg or whatever, the turkey
Mm,
leg. Oh man, that just the blood. I think it was more or less like the blood in the teeth that really got
yeah.
to me. I'm just like, holy crap. When did Star Wars become a horror story? Oh, 1997. George Lucas just decided to put this like extra gory stuff in the film for some reason. But hey, sets the backdrop. These things are dangerous creatures. And they apparently kill a lot of stormtroopers and Shadows of the Empire, so they're more than formidable opponents. But yeah, so we got that. Minecraft, Ben, I'm throwing this one to you. Did you get a chance to play the new Minecraft DLC?
Not with me being sick, but I did like watch some videos on it and
Okay.
whatnot. And for anybody that's looking to play it, it's like a purchasable DLC. I'm pretty sure it's cheap. It's only like 10
Yeah.
bucks or something. So it's cheap. But yeah, I mean, from what I've seen from the videos and stuff, like the graphics look really nice. Like you go around like the prequel era, you run into like Darth Maul. You, from what I've seen from the videos, like you can at the beginning of it, you actually go to like the council and get knighted by the council and everything to
Whoa.
become a Jedi. Yeah, so like it's like in depth and stuff. So like you actually, that's why I was gonna message you, Chris, and say I think you would actually like it because it's a story, like you actually are a Jedi going around the galaxy, like Yoda's like, from what I got anyway from watching videos, like I guess Yoda like sends you on a mission or whatever. But yeah, like you get knighted and everything. So I'm like, man, this is actually really cool. And like the locations look really nice. And like, yeah, I didn't get a chance to play it because I was sleeping so much this week. But yeah, I'm planning on playing it here at some point because hey, for only like 10 bucks, like can't really beat that for a nice little Star Wars game to play just in the meantime.
Yeah, for what I imagine, this is a single player kind of experience because Minecraft is usually just a sandbox game where it's just, hey, go ahead, have fun,
It's
build houses.
it
I don't know.
it said on the advertisement though, like you can do a multiplayer experience with it. So I'm
Oh,
not sure.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm not sure.
that would get me more into it for sure because
Mm,
instead of like ghouls and zombies, let them just have stormtroopers and battle droids coming after you at night.
mm.
I don't know. Like they could come up with a lot more creative Star Wars creatures than that. I'm sure, but yeah, I mean that's a survival game. They're not really my jam. I'd
Yep.
rather play Minecraft Dungeons, which is basically a Diablo 4 clone, which is what I'm actually stuck on right now is Diablo. So, but yeah, no, it's good. Again, another experience. And that's going to be an experience that will replace Star Wars Hunters because apparently that's getting pushed back to next year. That's our next story here. Star Wars Hunters been delayed to 2024. I don't think anybody's really surprised by this because half the people probably are thinking, is this game even still being made? I mean, it shouldn't laugh, but it's just kind of almost a joke at this point because this game got announced back at Anaheim 2019, I think. Or no. Um, yeah, no, 2022. Yeah, 2022. I played this game, and since then they announced and released Jedi Survivor, and they'll probably at this rate have Star Wars Outlaws before this game. So I'm just racking my brain saying what's going on here, you know. So yeah, there's not much. I don't want to spend much time on this because we've talked about it last week, And here it pops up again this week. We thought it was coming out soon because last week they put out like some kind of behind the scenes trailer. And when they do that, that's probably a good sign of like, oh, this thing's going along fine. We're going to release this companion content to go along with hyping up the game. But yeah, don't get hyped up too quick. It's going to be delayed. So who knows? We don't even have tentative release schedule. It just says 2024, as nebulous as that can be. So
next, I would say I don't know. I don't think anyone's that excited for it. I think they've killed their hype on it.
If they announced, I would be a little bit more intrigued if they announced alongside the delay, we are also developing on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation.
Yep.
Then they would have my attention because, and I'm not a mobile gamer, but then this is coming from the same guy who's been obsessed with this new Warcraft Rumble game from Blizzard lately. So I can't say I'm not a mobile gamer because I dabble, but I'd rather just have a Star Wars game like that on the big screen. And I only have a Switch Lite, which I know it's my problem. I could just buy a Switch and hook it up proper to the TV, but the Lite you can't do that. But so I've been in a predicament because I'm like, just put it on Steam. Like, can it be that hard? I don't know. I'm not a game developer, so I shouldn't say things like that, but I just think it's weird. Every game's on Steam. Why isn't this on Steam? I don't know. But getting into our story, the first one's kind of a preface to our main thing here. Is because of the strike, the SAG, AFRA, they came to an agreement, and they made some compromises along the way. But the main thing is that, the actors will be compensated better than they were before. I don't know, Ben, about the whole AI situation. Do you have any more information on that? Because I did not look up like the fine print or the actual details on what's going on with that.
I mean, I know the general gist of it. Basically, they got the actors got their pay raise and stuff they wanted. But like they got a lot of the things they wanted. But when it comes to the AI thing, that was like the big thing. That was the sticking point. And basically the gist of what the studio was trying to do was like, hey, we want to sign you for a one-off deal, and then after that one-off deal, we own your rights indefinitely, like even after death, basically, to use your AI likeness whenever we want. And then they were also fighting the studio. This is from the studio side. They were also fighting for for the right to use AI rights for deceased actors without their permission of their family members or estate. So like that's why, that info basically, like Jeff Snyder talked about it on the Hot Mic this week, that info pretty much purposely got leaked out there, most likely from the SAG side of things because they wanted it to get out there. So, all you saw on social media last week was like the AI talk and, there was so much AI talk. And like that had to have put a lot of pressure on the studio. So that's why they ended up backing off of that point. So like I know they got past that point, which was the huge sticking point, which is really, it's good and it's great the actors got like their, fair deal for, what they were demanding and stuff. And now it's just now they have like another 3-year deal. So I believe, they're renegotiating next time in like 2026 or 2027. So we have a few years before another potential negotiating time, but yeah, it sounds like, from what it sounds like anyways, like the actors, it sounded like it was a pretty solid deal for both sides. Like, the actors gave leeway to whatever the studios were wanting a bit, and like the studios gave in to some of the AI and the pay things. So like it felt like, just from general buzz, that it was a pretty fair deal.
Yeah, so combined, because you got to think like the writers' strike, I think, started like 2 months before the actors' strike began, something like that. So combined total of over 6 months of basically all work stopping in Hollywood and production in general. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of disruption, and that's what they want, right? To get their point, to get what they want, you got to disrupt. You got to just kind of change the status quo things. In doing so, a lot of things were not being able to be promoted, right? The actors weren't able to share their experiences, go on the talk shows, and now the floodgates have been released, and we have gotten content from the Ahsoka behind the scenes, and it's been really freaking awesome. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the stuff floating around on Twitter and whatnot, but I think a lot of it comes from Ivana, who is the actress that plays. Oh gosh, I'm just freezing on on the character's name. The protege of Balin's Skull.
It's like Satir. Oh,
Oh,
my
Shin
goodness.
Shin
I-
Hati.
Shin Hati. Yeah, her and Amanas Fandi have both been posting on Instagram after the fact, and it's been great. Like Yvonne, I think got this awesome epic image of Thrawn, of him just sitting on this like lawn chair with his like legs up, and he's in full costume smoking a cigarette.
Yep.
It's like, this is the
I saw
most
that.
gangster thing I have seen. And then I seen somebody just like Photoshop it into like one of the actual Thrawn novels where there is a throne with Thrawn on it, of like him replacing like the painted version. And I was like, that works just as good. It's perfect.
That's great.
And then there's like videos out there of like all the people like Hayden and Ivana just like chilling, driving a kid's land speeder, like RC, like little tiny speeder that they can't fit in, so their legs are just like hanging out. And like Ivana has these shades on, just smoking this cigarette. Like, that's the common thing I noticed. Like, everybody smokes on this set. I'm like, this is the Europeans. Not to
Yeah.
put a blanket statement, but it is known that Europeans smoke a lot more than Americans as far as cigarettes. Because I was over there, and
Yeah, my relatives do.
yeah, I was over there, and I for London, and I've seen that stuff real quick. Like, not trying to show it aside, because Europeans are generally a lot healthier than Americans. That just happens to be their vice, right? That's what they do. So I just thought it was funny, just seeing Thrawn smoking a cigarette, seeing her smoking, and she's got these shades on, and she's driving this land speeder around the backlots at Lucasfilm or wherever they film it, I guess in Southern California. And then Hayden Christensen gets on the front, and she's driving behind him.
Oh yeah, it was cool seeing some of those.
Oh my gosh, I got a laugh out of that.
Oh yeah, it was cool seeing some of those behind the scenes pictures like that, and then even some of the funny social media interactions. Like, soon as the strike news happened, like 5 minutes before it finally like clicked over to where it was official or whatever, Amon like tweeted Star Wars and was like, "Hey Star Wars, can I finally like get a shout out now on your account, since you haven't been shouting me out and stuff?" And they responded, they were like, "Hold on, only a few more minutes and then we officially can." So like they were actually like tweeting back and forth with him, and it's good like to see things back in motion now. Like it's full steam ahead for Hollywood, and full steam ahead for Star Wars. Like, we have so much like to like speculate about for upcoming projects and things. Like, it's a good time.
Yeah, so diving into the show, the topic proper, about 42 minutes in. So classic out of room transmission, just getting it in later than we want, but still had good conversation, because even Ray's side was really enjoying our conversation earlier about just the general side of things. But it's interesting because I was thinking about this just a few minutes ago, when you have 6 or 7 months that the writers can't do anything, right? I'm thinking, like, are they is Lucasfilm, is Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, like, what is their thought process now? Because it's ending up like having this much time to think. Like, are they doubling back now with all this extra time that they're thinking? Like, oh, maybe we should do things differently. This over here with this storyline, or this storyline over here, rather than having this, in the last 3 or 4 years, having to schedule where like everything came out on time. There's not really any delays because production keeps continuing. What happens when production stops? Is there status quo in their mind, like backtracking? Maybe be like, oh, instead of doing this, when we could start writing, we could do this. I don't know. That seemed to dawn on me.
Right. Well, I think this goes into leadership and being a good leader. I think in any good field you work in, if there's some type of work stoppage or some type of bump in the road, you always take time to reassess, because that's what good leaders do. So if Kathleen and Bob are the good leaders as we think they are, they're looking at the situation and say, okay, 1, what can we do to grow our business? Because that's most important, because it's a business. 2, what can we do to make the best content for the fans that's going to keep fans coming back? 3, what else can we do to ensure that one, like this strike, which has affected them. What can we do to make our writers and our actors feel like that they're part of this family and that they're valued? You know, if they look at those three things, I'm sure, and make the changes where they need to be changed, then they're going to be fine. Then they're going to make really good decisions because we know Star Wars is in a weird place right now. Yes, we got the Ahsoka show, which was fairly well received. I know the last two episodes were a little, whatever. But obviously, Star Wars is still in a weird place for some fans. So I think they need to take the time to say, okay, where do we need to take this? Because the focus should be shifting, whether it's here, here, or here. And I know they have all those plans of the movies coming out and with Rey and all that type of stuff. So, and they got the I guess the Mando movie. No, what movie was coming next?
Well, the Filoni movie, whatever he's gonna make. It's the Ray movie, Filoni movie, and then James Mangold old Jedi movie, whatever it is.
Right, and like so, I just think if they looked at those things I listed and reassessed and said, hey, what can we do to strengthen all those things I talked about? Then they should be fine because leaders do that type of stuff. Kathleen Kennedy don't get where she gets to without looking in the mirror and reassessing whether it's about herself or about her company or direction. Bob Iger doesn't become the CEO for Disney for as long as he's been by just being some schmuck. He has to look in the mirror and say, hey, we need to do this better. I need to change this. We need to make the adjustments here. You know, again, we always talk about sports analogies on this show. Every great organization, GM, coach, or owner, if they want to be consistently consistent, good, and always contending, they make the necessary changes to ensure that their franchise is always within that position. I mean, look at Pittsburgh Steelers for football fans out there. Pittsburgh Steelers have been a consistent franchise for 20 years plus, 20 plus years actually. Even when they have down years, they're consistent and they make the proper changes when needed.
Well, Milton, I think even better example, I mean, not to be your Eagles homer, is the Eagles. Look, they went from Andy Reid for 15 years to Doug Peterson to Nick Sirianni, and the Eagles have been a good team since 1999, and it's 2023. So, like, you know, like, they're always a consistent organization, and, like, I think that consistency is important when it comes to, like, you know, this whole thing with Star Wars, or, like, you know, not being afraid to adjust, like, you know, upcoming, you know, this year, like, kind of get into, like, our shows coming up.
Yeah.
We have the Bad Batch, we have the Acolyte, and then we have Skeleton Crew. And the thing is, we still don't have a solidified date for any of those things. Like, we're assuming, you know, Bad Batch will probably be in the spring, I would assume, or like, you know, here January, February, March, probably just because that's where it's fallen, you know, in its history. And then Skeleton Crew. See, here's the tricky part when it comes to the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. Like, I haven't seen like a ton of people talk about this online, but if you think about it, the only shows they have in the can right now are Bad Batch, Skeleton Crew, Acolyte. Wait. The thing is,
they also have Tales of the Jedi, baby, right?
Was Tales of the Jedi done or wasn't?
Yeah, I don't think it was even started, but I thought I heard it was going to come out next year at some point.
That's what I thought I heard that too.
Okay. So you have
and
those
Andor,
shows.
Andor.
Well, Andor wasn't completely done though, so
No,
I don't
it wasn't.
know. I don't think they'll squeeze that in. So that's the thing I'm saying here is like talking about as adjusting is like think. So we have like if you're in Star Wars' shoes, you only have 3 projects, essentially maybe 4. Let's just say 3 for this argument. 3 projects in the can right now that are usable.
Okay.
Like in the can, ready to go, press a button and it's on Disney Plus.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say from that point of view. So the thing is with Star Wars, if you're them, with you not having because let's say, you know, Mando season 4, that will not happen until 2025 now, most likely, because there's no way they're going to squeeze it all in and get it done by 2024. You know, we're only 2 months away from 2024, people. So, you know, it's just a matter of what's going to get pushed or moved around, because the thing is, if you're Star Wars, for example, so you have like Bad Batch, say earlier in the year, maybe Acolyte in the summer or fall, do you push Skeleton Crew completely out of 2024 because you might not have a show spring of 2025, for example, because the only shows that would be coming spring of 2025 potentially would either be Andor or Skeleton Crew if you push it. So like, that's the tricky part with Star Wars, because we probably won't get Mando season 4 until probably fall of 2025, if I had to guess, like just based on logistics of filming and everything and editing. So it's just a matter of like, I wonder how they're going to do this shuffling about with all these shows.
I think with the hype of the Mandalorian saga, whatever you want to call it, Mandoverse, they've been consistently just putting out a show in the Mandoverse every year. So Skeleton Crew's got to come out next year because people are wondering what's going on with Ahsoka. I'm hoping we get some answers in that show, but I'm not going to hold my breath because what the heck? Like another thing, right, that we can go into is maybe we'll start hearing announcements. I mean, it is not known by anybody officially if Ahsoka's getting a season 2. I think before the hype even dies down, there's still some people talking about Ahsoka out there. Right. Capitalize on that. They know if they are or not by now. If they're making a season 2, they better know. Just tell us,
right.
like,
and that's the thing, like Star Wars. Look, this is what I said earlier. This is where I think they really should look and take the assessment of saying how can we build that relationship better with our fan base. Mm-hmm. Again, we don't need to know everything, but we need to know what direction you're going to take this excellent franchise that's going to survive out, that's going to outlive us. It's because we need a good understanding. Be transparent with the fans in a way that we feel like we're a part of it and we have a clear direction. It all comes down to clear direction and consistency, which is one of my gripes that I had about the films for that short period of time when they came out in 2015, because it felt like it was all over the place. So I think if we get back to just, hey, let's give the fans an idea of what we're looking to do. Let's try to be consistent. I tell you what, we would not gripe as much. We would not be up in arms. Now, you still have your haters out there because they just like to hate. That's what they do. But you communicate with your communication, people. That's all we ask for. That's all we ask for. If you give that to us, things will be somewhat, I think, better. And I think we would be more receptive to what Lucasfilm and Disney's trying to give us.
Yeah, so as far as the things that I think have not been affected by the strikes, I believe animation, people have been recording animation, like voice actors could still do voice recording, right? So that stuff has been still going. So I really don't think Bad Batch gets affected by the strike really much at all. Also, which is really interesting, I'm pretty sure visual effects artists and stuff were still working the entire time.
Oh yeah, they were working around the clock. I mean, that's why Deadpool, according to like Jeff Snyder, he heard the first half of Deadpool is getting screened soon for shareholders or something. So like there's a lot of things that were still getting their visual effects completely done, even though it was through the strikes, because you got to think about it. Like the visual effects artists have nothing to do with, the SAG negotiation or the WGA negotiation, because they're a separate contracted company. Like, I've heard, John Campea had talked about it before. Back in the early 2000s, he ran a special effects company for a few years, and, he was just contracted they got the project and they worked the special effects. Like they didn't interact with anybody, from the thing. So yeah, the special effects for all these shows were still going on. Like, for example, like Andor special effects, like, I'm sure they got all the special effects they could do, up to whatever certain point, they had filmed for. Like I'd be 99.9% sure they were, like, just because it's a separate entity.
Let's look at how the films can be pushed back, right? Because you look at Marvel, and we got a big shakeup that's happening there. So apparently Deadpool 3 was supposed to come out in 2024 in May. It got pushed back to July 26th of 2024. And then Captain America 4, Brave New World, and then I think it's the Thunderbolts, completely got moved like 6 months or something, like out of 2024 into 2025. So next year there's going to be a single Marvel movie, whereas there was originally supposed to be 3. So I mean, I don't know if this is going to affect the Star Wars movies at all, because our next one was supposed to be in 2025 with this Rey movie, and then the Mandalorian verse is going to be upsided. So it's going to be interesting to see if because it was already so far out, if it got pushed back enough. I mean, a lot of that time is spent with pre-production, like getting the sets made. Maybe there was a script already. They could start doing the sets and stuff, costuming and stuff like that. So I'm going to be curious to see if they could still hit that target 2 years from now that they had originally set.
Yeah, because it was 2026, correct?
Well, no, the movie was going to be 2025 for the Rey movie, I thought. I thought it was, because I don't want to try to correct you on air, but I think though, Chris, I think the way it was set up was, I think it was May 2026, December 26,
and then December 27 because
Oh,
it was
that
in an
might have been-
18-month calendar. All
Okay.
3 movies were. I'm like 80%. I'm pretty sure it was 26.
And now,
But
yeah.
but the thing is, even with that, I think with the Ray movie, it's a lot easier than the Dave movie, just because you don't have to worry about finishing up the Mandoverse stuff right now.
Exactly.
Because if you think about it with the Mandoverse, you have Mandalorian season 4. We know that that's gonna be coming. We got, is there an Ahsoka season 2? Potentially. If so, yes. We get that potentially. So that's 2 shows right there. And then you also have, Skeleton Crew still coming out. You have, stuff like that. And then on top of it, the thing is, when it comes to those shows, just the way they're going to be doing things, like if you think about this, like from a marketing point of view, they're going to want to clear the decks. Whatever year Dave Filoni's movie comes out, they're going to want to clear the decks for the marketing. They're not going to have like Mando season 5 2 months before the Dave movie. You know what I mean? So it's going to, I think the Dave movie could get pushed back even further, honestly, just based on schedules and stuff. But I think the Ray movie might stand strong and might actually stay in that potential May time slot.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting again with this gap in time. Like, have Dave been looking more at feedback of the fans, right? Are they taking the time to just stand back and be like, looking at some of the forums, look at social media and be like, oh, okay, like I see the fans didn't gravitate toward this, but maybe we can course correct. We got some time. We could start spinning some ideas. Milton, I don't know if they would ever look at that stuff or if they even do, period, but that could be a
I
possibility.
mean, look, that's a slippery slope. I've always said, like, you should acknowledge the fans when necessary, not all the time. Because let's be real here, like, because I can come up with some off the wall ideas which would make no sense for Star Wars. That's just my own headcanon. However, but I'm saying is, like, there's times where, I mean, you look at all the fan stories that are being presented on YouTube. I mean, just go to YouTube and type in Star Wars fan films, like, and the stuff that comes out of their brains is amazing. Yep. So right there, I think the Star Wars can acknowledge, like, hey, these people are creative. We might have to piggyback some of their ideas and put it within canons, give them the proper credit and reach out to that person who made it. But, like, it's okay to listen to the fans and see what they're working on. He's like, okay, that's not a bad idea. Again, have a forum with these fans. Who does that? Star Wars Theory. He does that. He'll have like fans come on his show, talk about like the stuff that they work on and talk about their fandom and all that type of stuff. That's a cool way to connect with your fan base and have like a town hall. That's why I think it's important that if you continue to communicate with us, give us a platform we feel like we're being heard and we're part of the process. Oh my God, you'd be surprised how receptive people will be if they do that.
I am like, at least, I don't know about Dave, but I'm definitely like 100% sure John looks into feedback because just watch, I mean, it's not even speculation. Go watch the Boba Fett behind the scenes documentary. Like, he gets so defensive about his story choice for Boba Fett. And he talks about, he pretty much goes right at the fan criticism that came out about that show in the behind the scenes. So John definitely looked up like reviews or reactions to the show because, he was very defensive in the Boba Fett behind the scenes documentary. So I know he definitely looks into it. And the thing is too, like when it comes to those famous people, don't get me wrong, like I don't care how humble and everything they act, but I've heard so many pro athletes talk about it before. No matter how hard an athlete says publicly, like, oh, I don't go and look into headlines, I don't look up media, and then you get them talking when they're on podcasts and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, when I got home laying in bed, I was searching my name on Twitter or whatever. I guarantee you those people are looking up feedback and things. Like it's only, to me, it's natural. And like as a creative, I personally would want to get that feedback though, like you, Chris, on your videos, like, if something's not working on one of your videos, I'm sure you would prefer someone to give you feedback, be like, yo, blah, 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 versus just letting you continue to like do it blindly. So like, I think it's cool that like, they potentially are looking into feedback and stuff, but it does make you wonder, like, how that will affect the filmings, the schedules of all these things. Like, cause like you have, the Daisy movie, the James Mangold movie, and then the Dave movie. And it's just like, and that's even a question if the James Mangold movie happens or not, because like after what happened what happened with Indiana Jones, like, does his movie even happen? So like, you have those type of questions. And like, so it's just it's an interesting state Star Wars is in right now, just to see like the schedules of where these things are going to end up falling. And I don't know, I'm so interested to see, like, all I want them to do is post a calendar for next year just to see where things release. Like, I want to see if the calendar just shows Bad Batch and Acolyte, or Bad Batch, Acolyte, Skeleton Crew. Because think, guys, Skeleton Crew was supposed to be coming out around this time right now this year, or in December. Like, and that's literally based off of the dude that plays Urkel. Like, he literally said on camera at an NBA game on at a halftime show, like, hey, blah blah blah, the Skeleton Crew's coming out, Thanksgiving holiday season, blah blah blah. Like, like he literally confirmed the time frame of when it was supposed to be coming. So it should have been airing here in the next few weeks, but it's not. So like that show's completely done. So it's like, or do they put that show early on, because it's like more Mandoverse stuff, like after Ahsoka. Like, so maybe, like you said, Chris, maybe, they're putting out Mandoverse shows every year. So maybe they do put this out, and then Acolyte maybe be like late in the holiday season or something next year.
Yeah, I mean, they gotta promote something. So if you look at Disney Plus, the next big release is going to be Echo. I think it's January 6th, and they're putting out all episodes at the same time. So there's not going to be much of a lead up to that as far as promotion goes. So I'm thinking we could get a Star Wars thing as early as late January, early February, which would be my guess. Because if they're not piecemealing it out, Echo, one episode every week, then once it's out, they don't really have to share the promotion anymore because the thing's out. So I'm thinking maybe, and then move on. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe January could be our next Star Wars thing. So I'm hoping to hear about that soon. But also just like looking at the 6-month kind of time gap, I'm thinking about the visual effects and de-aging, and we've seen how fast it went from, or how much better it got from season 2 of Mando to Book of Boba Fett just like a year later. So I'm hoping like they are able to iterate and maybe make leaps and bounds in like the virtual department as well. I think that could be something where we'd be like, oh yeah, if it wasn't the strike, we wouldn't have this amount of increase in this technology. Not looking for the strike to be able to do that, but it's just like, well, that's what happens when you can't do anything else. You can at least adapt this era of this medium of entertainment and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, there's all kinds of things like, that are equivalent to that. I mean, look at like when countries go into like war times and stuff. That's when the economies boom. So like, this strike could have caused innovation from
that's the word.
Visual effects companies. Like maybe they developed their AI technology, or AI, whatever, deep fake technology better, so we could get more of those younger actors and things. Like I mean, look at Indiana Jones, for example. Look how good Harrison Ford looked in that. That was wild. Like how good they did him. And like you have people like him, you have Luke. And I think this is, I guess, where we're getting in a little speculation territory, of course. I guess that's the point of this, like the future of Star Wars right now. Mm-hmm. But I think, in my opinion, long-term, big picture, it won't happen in any of the Mando shows or anything. But I think in the Dave movie, like just from a creative ego perspective, like I'm not saying like Dave is like some egomaniac or whatever, but who wouldn't want to do this? I think long-term, big picture, we're going to get the family portrait, Return of the Jedi-esque, and it's going to be all of Dave's characters and all of George's characters celebrating or something. We're going to have our Han, Luke, Leia, Ahsoka, Mando, all these people, Grogu, like, it'll be your family photo thing. Because, like, just from a creative side of things, like, it makes sense to have our original heroes in that movie, especially for the time period. Like, you know what I mean, Chris? You can't have a galactic crisis and then on Luke and Leia be like, nah, we're on Naboo, on vacation. Sorry. Like, I think long term, that's kind of like my speculation of what I am probably guessing is going to happen long term eventually in the Dave movie. I think, over these next few years, we'll get more and more better, technology like that. And I think we'll eventually get that big, family photo meeting of George's and Dave's characters all on screen together.
Yeah, I think that's a likely situation for sure. Milton, do you have any last thoughts on this?
I mean, look, I think overall, I think we are moving into a good direction. I agree with Ben. I think we will get some things that have been enhanced, especially with the technology aspect. I do agree with you guys on that. I think this writer's strike, there are probably some
What would
things
you like to
that
see, Milton? That's what would you like to see in these next few years as well? We'll throw that in there.
yeah. I was about to say, like, I think
Yep.
with the writer's strike and all that stuff, it enhanced the tech, which would then give us more opportunities to see things in Star Wars that we probably wouldn't have seen before. So I would love to see something where we just focus on Luke. You give me something that focuses on Luke and his journey. I think that would make my attitude a little bit more better about that whole time period of Star Wars. I think we're going to get more things where it's going to expand the universe. I think they're actually going to hear that. They're going to hear, like, okay, the fans are wanting more expansion. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing about Star Wars. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I think they're going to give us more things that we haven't seen in Star Wars.
Okay.
Like, oh, I didn't realize that was possible.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. So
Here's the thing, right? We have an entire new galaxy in Star Wars. I don't think enough people have dwelled on that fact. Is we've seen one new planet, Peridia, in a brand new Star Wars galaxy. Don't tell me that they don't have ideas about exploring that same galaxy in another way, right? Maybe it
Right.
is Skeleton Crew, because I read a blurb about Skeleton Crew saying something about a new galaxy, like these kids are trapped in a new galaxy or something, and obvious thought is, oh my gosh, this is maybe how they're going to connect Ahsoka to other Mandoverse stuff or something like that. But yeah, even if it's in a different time period or something, like, there you go. There's a new galaxy, and let's see new creatures and new technology and new civilizations, new cultures. There's so much to gather there. And yes, the new innovation and technology could definitely help, like, cost efficiency. Maybe it won't cost as much. They could do more of it, make it more cinematic quality. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Bet, any last thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree on all those points from both of you guys. Like, I just think, there's so much more innovation just year by year by year with all this filming stuff. And it opens up so many more storytelling avenues. For example, say if they do perfectly master a deepfake thing. And, like, what if, I mean, Mark Hamill obviously is fine with it because he's worked with him several times now on this whole deepfake thing. So, like, partner with Mark Hamill, and then we're going to get, what if we do get a full Luke series, like an 8-episode mini series of Luke and all this stuff. Like, it would be really cool just to see, like, where they could go with this. And then, of course, you have the implications, like you said, Chris, like, they introduced a whole new galaxy, and it's like, yeah, like, one of my big running questions before even that little blurb was out there about Skeleton Crew. I mean, I know some stuff about it, but it's like, I wonder how is that show going to connect to the Mandoverse? You know what I mean? It's a random show with a bunch of random characters, and, like, that's going to be the interesting thing to see how they end up connecting that to the Mandoverse to make it, like, relevant to, the Mandalorian and potentially the Dave movie.
But, yeah, Ben, I have a very surface level answer. I'm one of the 4,000 people that have that answer because they showed us a trailer at Skeleton Crew, and that pirate from Mandalorian is in there from season 3. There you go. I think he's got a name. But yeah, there's a connection. It's not much, but there's the connection.
Ace Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, basically. Oh, well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up here for the night. Thanks to Rayside. Thanks to Small Bentu Sakura for joining us for our live chat. Such a great, lovely conversations there in the live chat. So we hope that all of you can join us next week. We're going to be without Milton. It's going to be me and Ben and maybe somebody else. We shall see. Won't make any promises. And, this is going to be the one show that Milton's not on, where Lucasfilm will break, give us the first ever timeline of, okay, guys, we're getting this, and this. It's like, damn it, Milton. But No. I hope. I'm trying to will this into existence. Okay.
Let's just you know what? Next Sunday we'll have to get like a random call in from Milton because they'll just go and announce a Luke series next Sunday afternoon, and he'll be like, "Uh-oh, gotta call in."
No, see, the problem is if you do that, it's gonna be with F-bombs and all that type of stuff. Especially if I'm hype, I'm like, yeah, let's effing go, bro. That's what I've been effing been asking for. So I mean, listen, I'd be uncensored heavy. So you might have to bleep out every other word.
Oh man, fun times as always, my friends. We got some really good topics spinning off of some, broader type of discussions. We didn't have a whole lot of direction topic wise this show. I kind of pulled this out, and I think we got some good conversation. Rayside saying 2-hour show, please. Sorry, I have to go watch the Marvels, so that's the only reason why I got to pull the plug a little earlier this time around, guys. But I'm going to throw it over to you, Milton. Where can the people find you? We know you're talking about the Eagles. They're doing pretty good this year. Where can they find your sport commentary?
You can find me on Instagram at Milton7Weber. I do a lot of sports posts on there, but look, if you want to interact with me, you can hit me up in my DMs on Instagram, on Twitter. So my Twitter is MiltonWeber7. My Instagram is Milton7Weber. If you want to talk sports, Eagles, whatever, you can DM me. I don't even care. If you like the Cowboys or the Washington team or Giants, miss me with that. We ain't gonna be cool because we bout that life with the NFC East. Let's go. 8-1, baby, and we got the Chiefs coming up. We ain't scared of nobody. All right, low key, I'm scared of Patrick Mahomes. He's my fantasy quarterback. So,
and for me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RealBenMaynard. I'm always talking Star Wars and fitness and celebrating hopefully another Browns win next Sunday. And just getting back on the fitness grind after being sick for a week, and it's feeling good to be back. And who knows? Well, maybe next week, Chris, you and me will have a 2-hour show if we're getting requests for that.
Back to the old ways of doing things, I suggest, or I assume. But as far as me on the channel here, like I said, I have my entire playthrough of Jedi Survivor. All 12 parts are in a nice organized playlist on the channel. Make sure you go ahead and check that out. If maybe you're like Milton, you haven't played the game, but you want to see the story. Well, it's all there, and there's no filler. It's all single player, story only, no side quests. There you have it. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
One final thing to throw in there. Also, along with that, if you're wanting to play video games or whatever, but hey, one thing you got to do this week. I believe the date is November 17th. We're in a few days. It's going to be Life Day, so get on Disney Plus and watch the old holiday special this week.
I don't think they have that on Disney Plus, and I don't think they'll ever want to have that on Disney Plus.
Or go to YouTube and watch the pirated copy on YouTube.
That's the only way it exists, and I couldn't make it through. I tried a couple of years ago. I couldn't do it. Somebody could use it as a version of torture, I'm sure, because that's basically what it did to me. So, oh man, I didn't want to have to end on that note about the holiday special. But I guess that's how this show is going to end. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Starrapter. I was thinking of saying X there for a moment, but I don't think we've converted to that yet on this channel. Although, if the eagle-eyed viewers out there watch the YouTube video, I took the birds out of our handles on the layout. So it just says at everybody's name. There's no more birds, sadly. But anyway, that's going to do it for me, Milton, for Ben. Tune in next week and subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/Starrapter, and go ahead and give us a rate on any of your podcast streaming apps of choice. This was episode 128. Thank you for watching. May the force be with you always. End transmission.